Transference is a first-person horror puzzle walking simulator, what a mouthful, made by Elijah Wood. Or at least by his company or something like that. It features a wacky scientist who thinks it's a good idea to suck his families into a virtual world so that they can live together forever. The family's dysfunctionality isn't something an eternity in a computer is going to fix. The game features a slow, plodding molasses of a main character who has to solve the mystery of what happened to the family. I was able to beat the game in less than an hour, although that is coming from an elite, pro-level status expert gamer with over 100,000 gamer score. It becomes clear early on that the family's pretty fucked up. The father's obsessed with his work, so much so that he totally disregards his family and his son. He knows no bounds, even experimenting on the family dog, who is very cute, and then he is not. That does lead to the funniest line in the game, where the son asks,
"There's my fucking dog!"
The mother didn't seem to want a kid because she had to give up her very good music career, and she wants to leave the father. The blame game seems strong in this relationship, but never leads to positive experience for either person involved. The main villain in the game is a shadowy glitch monster who attacks randomly as you progress through the game. The father and the son both show up as themselves throughout the game, but the mother does not. The narrative beats make it seem like the mother has become the evil shadow monster, but I'm not really sure why though. She's unhappy. She doesn't want to spend eternity with her family and her fucked up husband, but that doesn't make her some evil monster. Maybe the monster is supposed to be more metaphorical and represents the depression or feelings of entrapment that the wife clearly feels. Like one of the repetitive visual motifs to that is a pair of handcuffs shown throughout the game. But the husband seems like he cared at some point in their relationship. He even writes kind of cringy poetry for her. And if that's not true love, then I don't know what is. However, the obsession with the discovery of immortality in the form of virtual reality takes over his brain, and isn't that just the average American story of marriage separation? 50% of American marriages end in divorce, and I'm going to say at least 10% of those are probably because of immortality in the form of virtual reality. The game seems to be based mostly around the experience of the characters rather than any actual plot. This makes even more sense when you find out that this game was originally designed as a virtual reality game that got ported into a standard version. This places the player within the plot line of a virtual experience. It makes even more sense because the player has stepped into the world that the father created for his family, complete with their own apartment that was a paradise to him, but took on different meanings for the rest of the family, such as a cage for the mother, or a nightmare for the son. It is then your job as the player to switch between these different environments using light switches, which is moderately clever, to discover these crystals that are placed into a machine and are used to do something. It's some part of the machine that the father invented. I don't really understand what they do or what they really mean, but that's alright. It's some scientific mumbo-jumbo, I suppose, that if I read more into it I could probably figure out, but doesn't really matter. The game captures an eerie mood, but some things are strange. The game mixes film photography and CGI gameplay, but the gameplay looks really bad. The live action sections of the game do not seem to add much to the gameplay other than for me to go, hey, that's the guy from Blue Ruin. Nice. If anything, they only highlight how poorly the rest of the environment looks compared to real life. Again, you could say that was intentional because the father created something that isn't as good as the actual world, but I seriously doubt the developers were digging that deep. Instead, I bet they just made it using Unity or something like that. Additionally, the game features relatively simple puzzles, which is what adds to the runtime of the game. Do these add anything to the game? Not really. They feel tacked onto the environment and the mood of the game rather than a central, key piece of the gameplay. This is something that a lot of games do, but it gets frustrating as the player to have to force your way through these puzzles where they don't feel necessary to the actual purpose of the game. They wanted to make a walking simulator and they looked at the runtime and they went, oh shit, better put in some bad puzzles. The game also seems to make a central point of music. Music is on the title screen, and the mother plays music for a living. There's even an entire room dedicated to music in the home. I thought that this might become a central piece of the gameplay. For instance, I was imagining some sort of horror music survival game, like an evil wander song, and instead we got one puzzle that involved a piano. And that was really the only reference to music through the actual gameplay. I did not get particularly scared by this game too much either, and while I'm a total pussy when it comes to scary games, this one just really didn't do anything. It's definitely atmospheric, and the game does include a couple jump scares, but I mostly just ignored the scary stuff. Maybe I would have felt different if I was in like VR goggles or whatever. The puzzles might also make more sense in VR, such as the paper puzzle. Oh well. Some people describe this game as triggering because of the spousal and child abuse that is pretty blatant throughout the game. While this is obviously disturbing, it didn't get to me any more than a standard episode of Law & Order SVU would. The game as a whole is just okay. The positive is that it's so short, so you don't have to dedicate a lot of time to beating it. The bad part is the boring puzzles, the mediocre graphics, and the heavy-handed themes that say spousal abuse. It just gets to be a little bit too much sometimes. Overall, it's probably worth the hour or so that it takes to beat, especially if you like games like PT or Silent Hills, or other games in sort of first-person horror experience, drama, whatever. So, I guess give it a shot. I did get it on sale, so that probably made me enjoy it more. Anyway, bye.